Welcome back to New Day Northwest. You have 6 days left to turn in your ballot for Washington's primary election, and there are some big seats at stake. So make sure you get your ballot postmarked or dropped in the ballot box by next Tuesday, August 2nd. And here to break down some of the key races is King 5 political analyst and former two-term Washington Governor Gary Locke. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to New Day.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, I should say welcome to King, but I'm sure they've already done that. So this is a really interesting and very important time, and I don't know that everyone knows how important sometimes these primaries are because, hey, the two people chosen are going off to November. So let's talk about the first race. One of the biggest ones that we're watching is the race for Patty Murray, who currently holds the U.S. Senate seat, and she's seeking a 6th term. Are they concerned at all about this political outsider, Tiffany Smiley?
Right now the polls show that Patty Murray has a commanding lead, but that's very early, and so much can change between now and November. So I think a lot of the pundits will be watching how well the challenger does. Does she exceed expectations and therefore attract more national donations and support? But I think it's anything can change between now and then in terms of inflation, the COVID. International affairs, so nobody really knows. But Patty Murray is one of the most senior members in the U.S. Senate, which brings has a lot of clout and therefore is able to accomplish a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's good news. Another race that I've always found this really fascinating, the 8th congressional district seat covers a lot of ground. It seems to me it has a lot of different needs. It's got King, Pierce, crosses the Cascades into Chelan and Kittitas County. I mean, what is that race looking like right now, and why is it so important that the voters pick the right person? Well,
that's going to be a real close race. It is a swing district. It was purposely drawn that way to neither favor Democrats nor Republicans. But Congresswoman Kim Schreier has held that seat for the last 4 years, going up for a 3rd term. It's going to be a tough race. It's going to be a tough race. And what's going to be interesting about that is who is the Republican challenger? There's a really hotly contested race among the Republicans there, but it will be a tough race, whoever emerges from that Republican primary.
Coming in November.
That's correct.
Oh, my goodness. All right, let's talk about Washington's Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, appointed after Kim Wyman resigned midterm for a job with Homeland Security. What are his chances of retaining his seat, and who else is up against him?
Well, there are quite a few candidates running, and it's a nonpartisan race. Well, it's a partisan race, long held by the Republicans. So for Steve Hobbs to have been appointed when the Republican Kim Wyman stepped down is a real opportunity for the Democrats. But Steve Hobbs has a great reputation. He's known as a centrist, as a moderate, a straight shooter, served in the military for quite some time. And I think he has a good chance, but there's so much competition, and it's kind of a sleeper race. People don't really pay attention to the Secretary of State race.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. A lot of folks don't quite understand how central that position is and what the Secretary of State does. Could you kind of just share why it is such an important office that we should be paying attention to? Well,
especially with all the national concern and controversy over the integrity of elections. The Secretary of State's office primary duty is to manage and oversee elections throughout the state and to coordinate with all the counties and the auditors that handle elections throughout the state. So it is a highly visible role. Especially given the concerns and doubts that some people have about the integrity of our elections. Washington State has a great reputation in terms of its fairness, the smoothness of its elections. We are one of the few states that allow people to vote completely by mail, and virtually all of our elections now are by mail. I
was shocked when I moved here and I saw that.
Yeah, and we have no controversy about drop boxes, and as long as the ballots are submitted or postmarked by election night, that makes it a little bit difficult because you don't know the results for many, many days until all the ballots come in and are counted. In many other states, the ballots must have been received by the county or the state by 8 p.m. election night, which means that you then have to put it in the mailbox, 3 or 4 or 5 days earlier.
Right. All right, let's move to the state legislature now. Any interesting races there?
Well, we have quite a few retirements throughout the state legislature, and so again, it'll be a question of on the Republican candidates in the Republican-leaning districts, who emerges. In the state of Washington, it's the top two, regardless of party. And so sometimes in a particular area with a retirement, let's say a Democrat retires, you could end up with two Republicans running in the final election, even though it's been long held by a Democrat. So it really depends on the personalities, the efforts of the candidates to get out their message, to get their name out and about.
All right. Let's look ahead to November now. What are the issues that you think will drive or maybe even divide voters?
Obviously, it's going to be the economy, inflation. A lot of people concerned about the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade, but not so much just overturning Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to choose, but also inferences that there is no right of privacy, even on contraception, same-sex marriage, and the list goes on and on. So that's going to be, I think, a lurking issue in the minds of the voters. Another thing that we need to watch out on Tuesday is who's going to emerge in terms of the 4th and the 3rd and the 4th congressional districts. Those are a long time Republican areas, but the Republican candidates or incumbents in Congress, Congressman Newhouse in Eastern Washington, Congressman Butler in the Vancouver area, they're being challenged by people within their own party because they took a courageous vote to vote for the impeachment of Donald Trump. These are two very conservative Republicans who went against their party and many of the Trump supporters and voted for the impeachment of the president. And now there's retaliation by members of their party, and they're being challenged. So it's going to be interesting to see.
That's going to be one to watch. And speaking of the former President Trump, if he decides to run for another term, how could that impact the midterms?
Well, obviously, the midterms are coming up in November, and obviously if the Republicans regain control of the House or the Senate, it would make life more difficult for President Biden and the Democratic administration, and possibly make it more receptive and for a Republican to win, whether it's Donald Trump or any other Republican in 2024, but also to set up the policies and to make it more difficult for the Democrats to accomplish whatever they want to do, and therefore create a bigger contrast between Democrats and Republicans going into the presidential election.
Real quick before I let you go, you have had your hat in many rings before and you've been through this. How would you describe the political climate now?
It's, well, first of all, this primary election is kind of a sleeper election. It's in the first part of August. Everybody's suffering from the heat. Not many people paying attention. But it's very, very important. So many races that are without incumbents, new people running, or incumbents being challenged by people within their own party. So it's going to be a very, very important race. But again, so much will happen can happen between now and November when the real election occurs.
Thank you so much, Governor Locke. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're lending to King. And remember, if you don't like what's going on out there, you want things changed, make sure you get out there and rock the vote. Just a reminder, the primary is next Tuesday, August 2nd. Make sure to watch King 5 News for team coverage on all the big races in Washington. We'll also have a live show on king5.com at 8 p.m. Tuesday, right as the first round of results are dropped. Governor Locke will be back to join the coverage along with King 5 political analyst Scott McClellan. We do it better than anyone else at King.